en la vida ya están aquí. I am free, free as a bird.
The spirit of the Camino. Live in the moment. Welcome each day, its pleasures and its challenges. Make others feel welcome. Share. Feel the spirit of those who have gone before you. Imagine those who will follow you. Appreciate those who will walk with you today. Welcome to the Camino Cafe podcast. I am Lee Brennan, your host. I am from the United States, but I am currently living in Santiago de Compostela in Spain. And I am enjoying being here in this magical city. Every day I am seeing more and more pilgrims coming into the city. And I just can't tell you how exciting it is to see them and to see how happy they are upon arriving here in this beautiful city. Today, I am welcoming the board members of the American Pilgrims on the Camino. And this is the second time that I have interviewed this group. I first interviewed them about a year ago, and I'm really happy to get an update from them today and share that with you. I am a proud member of this group, and I am very supportive of their mission. It is a 501c3 organization, and I think it's a very worthwhile program for any American pilgrim to be a part of. I want to share with you, before we get the interview started, a little bit about this group. The mission of American Pilgrims on the Camino is to foster the enduring tradition of the Camino by supporting its infrastructure, by gathering pilgrims together, and by providing information and encouragement to past and future pilgrims. Their value statement reads, "Our values are built upon the foundation of our collective experiences as pilgrims on the Camino de Santiago. In every decision we make and in every action we take, American pilgrims will strive to be in accordance with the values of community, service, gratitude, and simplicity." Our work as American Pilgrims on the Camino is an all-volunteer, nonprofit organization whose objective is to facilitate communication within the community of North American pilgrims, particularly those in the United States. American Pilgrims continually seeks meaningful ways to support the Camino de Santiago de Compostela. We have three principal goals: to support the Camino, to gather pilgrims together, and to provide information. I think you'll find that the board members really live the values and the mission statement and the work that they mentioned here. And it was a joy to get an update from them. And I hope that you enjoy this conversation that I had with them. In the meantime, I hope that you are planning a Camino. I am planning to myself. I am getting ready to walk here in a couple of weeks with some friends. And then finally, I will be walking with my dad. For those of you who have been following this podcast, it is something he and I have been trying to do since before COVID. And we finally are going to get to start just around the end of June. So I can't wait to do that. And I can't wait to share that with you. Anyway, let's get to today's interview. I hope you enjoy it. And may I ask for a favor? If you're enjoying the podcast or the videos I have on YouTube with the podcast, could you take a moment to give us a review, a thumbs up, a comment? By reviewing the podcast, it really helps other people find out about it. And I would really love to be able to get the stories out that so many pilgrims are sharing here at the podcast, as well as inspire pilgrims who right now maybe are just thinking about coming, but they haven't scheduled the trip. And I hope that when they hear these stories, that they go ahead and book that ticket and come and walk. So anyway, thank you for all of your support. It means the world. And this project is just so much fun for me. But most importantly, I think it's helping us spread the word about why we pilgrims love to walk the Camino de Santiago. Let's get to today's interview. Welcome back to the Camino Cafe, everyone. I am thrilled to be sitting back down with the American Pilgrims group. And I've got the board members here with me, committee chair members here with me. And it was exactly a year ago when we sat down last time to talk. And Wow, the world has changed since then. You got to have the annual gathering in person. What a great thing to have happen. And I want to talk about that tonight with you, as well as some other things. So thank you so much for coming to the Camino Cafe.
Thank
So
you.
let's you're welcome. So let's go around the table here and just introduce everyone. And Steve, we'll start with you. If you could say your name as well as what your role is with the board and the last time that you walked the Camino.
Yeah, my name is Steve Lynch. I'm the chair of the board of directors. And the last time I was on the Camino was in September. I did the Portuguese coastal route.
Excellent. All right. And Joe, let's go to you.
Yeah, hi, Lee. Thanks for the invitation. I'm joining you from Arlington, Massachusetts, just outside of Boston. I'm one of the newest members of the board. I just joined in January, but I chair the chapters committee, and that's where a lot of my time is invested, both through the board and as a local chapter chair as well. But I'm also involved with the communications and some backstopping on technology. I walked in 2019 the Camino Frances and out to Finisterre and Muxia with my daughter, and hope to get back soon.
Yeah, definitely. And Tom, we'll go to you next.
Okay, so Tom Labazinski, I'm from South Bend, Indiana. And right here in South Bend, we hosted sort of a national event. It was the celebration of the Camino, and we did it in July, late July, during the feast day of St. James. And it was on the campus of St. Mary's in Notre Dame, and it was just a great event. We had people from almost 40 states that came. And we were glad to do that. My last Camino was last June, just when Spain started opening up to Americans. I got over there within the first few days that it was opened. And I got to say, I didn't meet any Americans during my entire time there in Spain. And the Camino seemed very empty. And I did the Primitivo, which is usually emptier than others. And so I'm going starting actually at the end of this week, heading off to Spain and going to do the Primitivo again, this time with my 22-year-old son, and then going to go off to Saint Jean and meet a contingent of people from the South Bend area and get them started on their very first Camino. They're going to start off the Francis, and I'm going to get them going, and it's going to be fun to head over the Pyrenees there. So looking forward to that. I'm the committee chair for membership, and so can report on that. And we have lots of fun with members, get special treatment at the American Pilgrims, but everybody can get a credential no matter what, and also all of our information, and we'll move on.
All right. Sounds good. I can't wait to see you here, Tom.
We'll meet. We'll get together.
And Ruben, tell us about what you do.
My name is Ruben Mendoza. I live in Katy, Texas. I chair the Grants Committee, the External Relations Committee, and the Governance Committee. So I'm happy to be here with you today.
And when's the last time that you walked, Ruben?
Oh, 2018, Camino Frances, all the way through.
All right. All right. So we've got some great experience in this group. So welcome all of you. I can't wait to see you back here in Santiago. I hope it's soon. And is anyone else planning one coming up?
Well, my wife and I are going to be hosts in Ribadiso in August. So, you know, I love the image of, it's sort of like the Hospitaleros that Tom's going to talk about. Rather than being part of the stream passing through, will be rocks in the stream and welcome people in the Ribadiso albergue that the Junto runs there. Mm-hmm.
Excellent. That's a great way to describe it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's start with the gathering. I have been hearing great things about the gathering from several of my friends that attended. So I just want to get an idea on, I guess we'll start with you, Steve, on how you feel about the general feeling amongst Americans right now. You know, what was your feel? Do people feel comfortable traveling right now? Do you feel like people are ready to come back to the Camino?
Well, people are certainly very excited, and I think if we've seen numbers of people of credentials being, Compostelas being issued are back up pretty close to what they were pre-pandemic, and the credentials that we offer are starting to get pretty close to where they were pre-pandemic as well. As of the end of March, we were pushing 1,000 for this year. That's one of the ways that people really get connected with our organization. We offer free credentials. We're the only organization in the United States that the cathedral is authorized. And you go to our website and you get one that's personalized. It has your name and your address printed on it. So yes, I think people are enthusiastic. We certainly felt that at the gathering. It just took place a few weeks ago in Black Mountain, North Carolina. We had a capacity of 300, and within a couple of days it was filled up. So people are really excited to get together.
Yeah, I will say, I was just going to begin and say, thank you for the credential that I got last fall. It came really fast. So that was really nice to get that. It did look like you had a huge number at the convention, right? How many? Yeah,
we had 300. I call it a Woodstock for pilgrims. And it's Thursday evening through Sunday noon. And it's got all kinds of fun. We do music. We started off with a Spanish guitarist. One night we had a one-act, one-woman play called "Crying on the Camino." The author and the actor has done it in New York on Broadway, and that was really fun. One night we had a local bluegrass band that led us in square dancing. Nice. We always have wonderful presentations, everything from descriptions of different caminos or other pilgrimage routes, some moving sort of inspirational talks, some interesting history talks. And then of course, the best thing is just sitting around visiting with other pilgrims or potential pilgrims and sharing stories and experiences. It's also a great time for first-time pilgrims as well. We have a shell ceremony. I guess we gave about 30 shells to people who are going on their very first Camino this year. And we have sort of practical workshops as well, like Camino first aid, or, what should you pack? One of the fun things was we had a Camino fashion show where we had these really striking peregrinos who were modeling the latest Camino fashions. And one morning, very early, Tom led us up to our own Cristofero. One of our members, who is a blacksmith, had made an iron cross, and he put it up in a high place near our gathering place. And Tom led us out of the meeting space by a piper. It was just like we were going into the Plaza del Obradoro, and up to this our own little Cristofero, which was a very moving event. So the next gathering is going to be middle of April. It's going to be in Lake Tahoe, in Nevada. So it's
that'll be in 2023.
2023. Yeah. So you just watch our website for that. And okay. So the gathering's great fun, and we feel really good having come off of that. Mm-hmm.
All right, I want to talk a little bit about this Cristofero. Tom, was that your idea?
Well, the idea came, I think, over 1,000 years ago from the pilgrims that put the cross up there, and so we even presented some of the history of it. But it was an idea that I asked everybody after we got away from the bagpipes, sending us off at 6:50 in the morning. He started playing. At sunrise, we're walking up this mountain, and I asked everybody to have silence and walk meditatively and smell the air and just enjoy it and have your senses wide open. And we get there, and then everybody that brought a rock from home, and just like on the real Cristofero, they left their rock there with either something that they wanted to get rid of in their lives, or something that they had an intention for. And then Joe and another person from our group sang Oltrea. And then thanks to Miriam, she gave us the idea to also include a thought for the Ukrainian invasion. And we sang, it was Heal the World.
Heal the World.
Yeah, and that was a very moving thing. And then I asked everybody, as I started walking down the mountain back to get to breakfast, because this was all pre-breakfast, And I think we had almost 200 people that went on this walk, and asked everybody to talk to somebody that they hadn't met, that they don't know, and share their Camino experiences. And so that was I think a fun event.
Oh,
And then Lee, the rocks that people left there were distributed among various people who are going over to Spain this summer, and they're going to be taken and deposited at the original Cruz de Ferro.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Well, I think it was snowing there yesterday, so you guys probably had better weather.
Well, you should know that the one of the original reasons that they put the cross there was because that's the highest point of the Camino, and because it often snows there. So when it's covered with snow, the cross always stands out. You know where it is. So you know that highest point. So it's supposed to be there to mark it, even with the high snows.
Yes, well, they've been having some weather, so very good that it's there. So I wonder, I imagine that the gathering is kind of like a stage of the Camino, that there's kind of the Camino provides, there's magic, there's probably some good stories. So I just wonder if there's a story that kind of stood out to one of you that maybe you heard about or experienced during the gathering that you'd want to share. Any Camino magic or any moment of the Camino providing.
Well, I'll tell you a moment that I think really stood out for me. The gathering. This is just pre-gathering. We did the coordinators workshop, and I think we probably had 39 people who were signed up for that. And we started out with an icebreaker exercise. We went around and we started very simple. We asked people to kind of sort and share, like sort yourself by your birthday or how far you came or how many Caminos you've walked, and then to share a memory. Either in one case it was a special birthday memory, in another case maybe it was a special Camino memory. And we went around the room and had people volunteer to just kind of share a little bit about themselves. And it was quite moving, I thought. It brought me back to Orason and some of the other albergues where you have the communal meals and everybody is invited to go around the table and to just share just a little bit about, maybe why they're walking or whatnot. And sometimes it's a very simple or you might even say kind of a mundane reason. I just want to take this walk and challenge myself. And sometimes it's something very deep and moving. And we heard some of that going around the room with our coordinators. And it brought back that Camino feel on that first night on the Francis at Orason for me. Yeah. There are many parts of magic. When Tom already talked about the Cruz de Ferro was wonderful too, and there was extreme joy and happiness too. The one act play was hilarious, and the square dancing was just a wonderful way for everybody to just come together and just feel a little freer. So those are a few for me. It was my first gathering, so it was great.
Hey, you know what? Go ahead.
I just wanted to ask Joe, and I'll throw it out to the rest of the group too. What did it feel like after all this time of being, in our lockdown, not being able to get together? What did it feel like for you personally, Joe, to be able to attend this gathering in person and to finally be around pilgrims in real life again?
Oh, it was extraordinary. I will say, in fairness, I went to the South Bend celebration last year, which was a little bit smaller, but it was extraordinary to come together. And after being in the lockdown, a lot of us have been relying on Zoom, and that cuts both ways, right? I think a lot of us have a little bit of Zoom fatigue, but also, we've had the opportunity with some of our committees to work with other pilgrims across the country. So I think all of us will be on several meetings a week, either planning the coordinators workshop or working on communications projects or whatnot on Zoom. And to get there and suddenly people are out of their little boxes,
right?
And someone runs over and gives you a big hug and you've never met them in person. It's wonderful. Yeah. It's wonderful. And that's that Camino feeling just comes right back. So
I totally agree with you. It's been so exciting to me to finally meet people in person that I've only been meeting through calls like this on Zoom for the past couple of years. And it's really nice to finally see someone in person. Tom or Steve, I think one of you were getting ready to say something about how it felt to be at this meeting. Or maybe you were going to say something else before that.
Okay, I'll jump in because I got to say that it was really a powerful, inspirational moment, the Hospitalero training. There were only 18 of us that were being trained, and this is the first session they've had of this in over 2 years. And it's for 2.5 days. And Dan Decay does a phenomenal job of training everybody. He was trained by people from Spain, and it's the only way you can get trained to be an official Hospitalero in the United States is through the American Pilgrims and these trainings. And it's just purposely a small group. And I gotta tell you, there were tears many times of the stories that were shared because we talk about hospitality and about the most powerful moments on the Camino. There was laughter. There were a couple of folks that when we were talking about Cruz de Ferro that took ashes of either a son or of a sister, and the heartbreak of that, and just the openness and the sharing and the emotions of the Hospitalero training was really powerful. I urge anybody that has thought about doing the training to sign up. We're going to have another session coming up in June, I believe, in Colorado, and more sessions to follow up, trying to do it every quarter. So the Hospitalero training was a big high point for myself.
Oh, I heard outstanding reviews of how wonderful this past training was, and I think you'll have a huge line at the next one. So, yeah. And then, Steve, were you going to say something else?
Well, I was just going to say you might be interested in having some contact information for this one-act play that we saw, because she's traveling around. So I'll try to track that down, Lee, and one of us will, and we'll get it to you if you want to pop it up.
Yeah, I would love to hear more about it.
It's really fun. Yeah, she's a pilgrim, and she wrote this one-act play about her experience, which, like Joe said, it's hilarious. It's moving. I don't think I've ever laughed as hard. It's the sort of thing. If you've never done the Camino, you might not get it, but if you've done it, it just hits all the right spots. So we'll try to get that to you, and maybe you can put it on the bottom of the screen or something like that.
No, I would love to talk to her. Are you kidding? That would be
well, yeah, she would be a great interviewee. She would be great on your podcast. We will definitely do that. Yeah.
All right.
And the other really fun thing was the square dancing. I mean, we had this local bluegrass band, and you got to see a lot of the people that we did know, and we just never seen them in this context, just really letting their hair down and having a great time. So yeah, that was fun. So it was laughter and crying, all just the gamut of experiences we had.
Well, I tell you, Santiago is extremely busy. It does seem like there are many more pilgrims coming every single day. So it sounds like what you saw at this meeting, as far as people feeling confident about coming, is definitely true. Because
we keep our fingers crossed that it stays that way.
Exactly. So let's talk about, as far as for the board, for the organization, let's talk a little bit about what kind of changes you see coming in the next year, as far as what does the board need to do, or the leadership need to do to kind of move the Camino forward, as it continues to get busier and busier and more people have interest in going. Do you see your roles changing, or things that you would like to see the board or the organization be able to provide to keep up with that?
I'll start with that. One of our values is simplicity, and I think one of the great things we're really addressing is how do we stay simple with the growing popularity of the Camino.
Yes.
I mean, our organization started out, this was our 25th annual gathering. And back when we started having annual gatherings, it was a fairly small group of people who, had heard of this thing that most people had never heard of before. And we were an organization, we provided the information and the credentials and all these other things. But the whole universe of pilgrimage and the Camino has just expanded so much. Yes. And so one of the things I think we're really having to define as we go along is, so what's our role? What's our niche in this very complex universe of Camino, offerings? And I think the one thing we keep coming back to is simplicity, service, community, and the enduring value, the enduring tradition of the Camino. So we're really trying to stay mission focused, while at the same time looking for ways to expand how we carry out that mission, because people are so enthusiastic about supporting who we are and what we do, and the resources that we have, is particularly in terms of human resources and skills that people have, and people just want to give back to the Camino. So one of our challenges is, how do we provide ways that people can do that, can sort of channel this outpouring that they feel about wanting to give back. So, from the 30,000 foot view, I think that's the big challenge that the board of American Pilgrims is addressing right now. It's a good place to be.
Yeah.
But how do yeah, go ahead.
How do you keep it simple when, every day there are more and more people finding out about the Camino? There's a lot of strong interest out there, a lot of questions. I mean, I could imagine just administering the Facebook community could be a full-time job for someone. There is just so much interest. So could you give us an example, Steve, of when you say that you want to keep things simple, the simplicity? What would be an example of maybe where you've kind of had to say, no, we need to stay simple on this. We need to make sure that we're keeping within our mission.
Well, we often get offers from other organizations to partner with them in a way that might be sort of tangential to what we want to do, like maybe offering tourist groups or something, or promoting certain activities or certain materials. And we will publicize things, we'll provide information. It's often tempting to want to get into, like, for instance, perennially the question will come up, well, maybe we should do something like have our own dedicated albergue, sort of like the Confraternity of St. James does. Yeah. But so well, given our distance and where we are and our tax status and everything, that's just something would get too complicated to dive into that. And I'll bet particularly Tom and Ruben, who've been on the board for a few years, might be able to think of other examples. But you just want to avoid mission creep. And that's something that it's really easy to fall into if you're not careful. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so really good. We really are trying to stick to the three main components of our mission, which are providing infrastructure for the Camino, and by that we restrict it to donativo albergues, and associations, because there's plenty of wonderful private albergues that would love to have our support. Exactly. The second aspect is gathering pilgrims together, which we've been talking about, and the chapters is a big way that we do that. And chapters are always tempted to get into partnerships and relationships that would just kind of make it a little bit messy. And then the third way is providing information. So infrastructure, gathering, and information. We just try to keep really focused on that so that we can maintain our unique identity as preservers of that, fosterers of that tradition.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that detail. I think that was really helpful. Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's shift gears just for a moment, Tom, and I'm wondering if you would just kind of give us an update on membership growth and kind of, do you have a target of how many people you want to be members?
So, excellent question. So that the past 2 years, I'll have to say that it's been a challenge for membership. When people were not heading off to the Camino and wanting to become a member just because they're going to do their Camino. The membership numbers were actually down in 2020 and 2021, but they're starting to tick back up, back to the normal levels. And even though there are thousands of people that do the Camino every year, there are about 2,000 really loyal, dedicated, generous people that do become members of the American Pilgrims, which is only $50 a year. But we also have lifetime members, and we have several hundred of those lifetime members and household memberships. And so, and we find out that the main reason, interestingly enough, that people join the American Pilgrims is one, because they like to give back. And they know that the majority of their membership dollars are going to go back. And with Ruben's committee there, select really different facilities that need the help and are going to benefit so strongly to help keep the Camino alive. And the Camino is struggling to get back after 2 years of a pandemic. And so that's very powerful. The other thing is, just like Steve was saying, it's for the gathering of American Pilgrims. You know, people need that fix of pilgrims getting together, and they also are looking for information. And the website, and as you mentioned, the Facebook page with Yosmar heading up that, and they do just a phenomenal job of Sarah with the information on the website, putting information out there and the connecting of pilgrims, which we know we all just really thrive to get together and get information on the Camino.
Yeah, and I think that's more important than ever, right? Providing that opportunity for pilgrims to gather. You know, maybe some folks can't make a trip this year or don't feel comfortable coming all the way to Spain. And so I think the gathering can be a nice way to have that pilgrim connection if they can't travel, maybe until 2023 or later. I'm wondering, I'm just curious, I have no idea about this next question, but I was just wondering, Joe, has there been any increase in the number of chapters over the past couple of years? Because I know, you know, we weren't able, I was part of the Seattle chapter right before I moved here to Santiago. But, you know, at the time that I was still in the US, we couldn't get together because of COVID restrictions. And I know a lot of that has been lifted, and chapters are getting ready to have walks and different things. So what's going on in the chapter world?
Yeah, so you know, as I say, I'm new to the board, but I know from talking to my colleagues that the level of growth has been extraordinary over the last number of years. I think my own chapter, Boston, I think we were number 12. I think we were the first east of Mississippi, and I think we were number 10, and I think we're 12 years old now. Now we have 58 chapters, and we have chapters in every corner of the continental United States, from Anchorage, Alaska, down to San Diego, over to Miami, and up to northern New England. And in between, most states have at least one chapter. And we have a number of active inquiries right now, too, from other areas that would like to. Sometimes, you know, folks have been traveling quite a ways, actually, to participate with in chapter activities. And so they'd like to start a chapter on their own. So we try to work and support them with that and see if there's sufficient interest. But there's definitely, there's you know, we even got like an inquiry in Hawaii, which would be even further out there. Not sure where that will go, but we did have somebody who asked, are there any resources, any chapters out there? One of the so we've had I think a lot of pent up demand. You know, some of the chapters, like you said, I mean, during the pandemic, had to pull back necessarily on some of their activities, especially if they were in colder weather climates and they have a shorter hiking season and whatnot. A lot went to virtual events. One interesting thing that's developed from that is that we see chapters organizing informational events and ways to bring pilgrims together, and other members from around the country will participate in those, and they get to know one another through that. But as we've started to emerge from the height of the pandemic, I mean, we're seeing, you know, I think a lot of pent up demand for more training hikes. We're seeing a lot more information requests, people seeking out mentors saying either, I want to walk this particular Camino. Can you put me in touch with another local pilgrim who has walked that Camino? Or we get inquiries sometimes from people who are interested in serving as hospitaleros and want to talk to somebody else locally who has served in that capacity as well. So there's a lot of pent up demand. We're seeing an uptick in activity. Each chapter, of those 58, they maintain their own mailing lists, and I think we're up around 19,000 or so who are subscribed to chapter mailing lists all put together. Now there might be some double counting there, but because some people like to poke around and subscribe to different chapters. And I think we've, with our last survey, again, this is self-reported, but I think that we're up around, I think I got the numbers backwards. It's probably about 11,000, 12,000 are subscribed to the mailing list. We've got around 18, 19,000 participants in chapter events. Now, those might be some of the same people coming back again and again, but there's definitely an interest in getting out there and gathering together. More interest in shell ceremonies to send people off. That's one thing that chapters will do. But part of our mission is not only to prepare pilgrims, part of our mission is also to support pilgrims after they come back. So there's a lot more interest in activities like that to give returning pilgrims an option to share, an opportunity to share as well. So it's been an exciting time with chapters.
Well, I'm definitely one of those people that benefited from all those Zoom meetings that all the different groups were having. Yeah. That was fantastic being able to participate. I think I participated in things with the Austin group, with the Boston group. It was really nice being able to have that. So, but I'm so happy that you're you're able now to have actual live events and people getting together to hike. So I wonder if somebody wanted to start an organization, Joe, if they say they live in an area where there is not currently a chapter serving them, what would be their first step in trying to start an organization close to where they live?
Well, the first step is to contact the chapters committee, and that's chapters@americanpilgrims.org.
Okay.
And when they contact us, we will then put a member of the committee in touch with them. We have 4 board members who are on the committee, but we also have a number of other very experienced folks who have work in various aspects of the chapters. And we assign one of them to reach out and talk to the committee. But usually the process is we try to ascertain if there's a sufficient core of interest in the area. Yeah. The typical process is that we ask the prospective coordinator to organize at least 2 meetings where people will come together to demonstrate the interest and the need and talk to one another. Because one of the worst things in the world that can happen is to set an expectation and stand up a chapter, but there's nobody there to really help to coordinate it. So we do want to make sure that there's kind of a bench of people who are willing to take on responsibilities. One thing that's happened over the last, I think, year and a half or so is we've really put a lot into leveraging our chapter coaches team. So the chapter coaches are a group of volunteers who are experienced chapter coordinators who have volunteered to work directly with coordinators around the country, and they'll reach out to brand new coordinators systematically to say, we're here to help you, whether that's in answering some questions or logistically about how to organize a hike and what some of the constraints are around that, or around finances are always a tricky issue, or around technology support as well. And we've put a lot into that. That's one thing that membership dues to American Pilgrims on the Camino supports is some of the software licensing. We provide chapters with some of the tools to communicate out to their groups. So a Google workspace so that they can take in email inquiries or communicate out or store their chapter documents, MailChimp so that they can have a mailing list for their chapter newsletters. So the chapter coaches are great about working with coordinators on that type of technology support. And at our gathering a couple weeks ago, it was actually some members of our Charlotte, North Carolina chapter took the lead on this, of organizing what they called a tech hub, where we were able to sit down and provide one-on-one tutoring on some of the technology tools that American Pilgrims provides, and answer questions. And it was a great model. So we can do that in person at the gatherings. We do that virtually. So that's a little bit, that's probably a longer answer than you were looking for, but that's a lot of what we've been involved in.
No, that's some great information. Thank you for that. I'm wondering too, Ruben, we're not ignoring you. I want to talk a little bit about grants. I think before we started the call, we were talking about a record number, $78,000 that has been awarded this past year or set to be awarded. Am I hearing that correctly?
Yeah, we have advised the grantees that they will receive a grant. And the process is that they sign an acceptance letter. And once they accept, we get the acceptance letter, we wire them the money for the grant. So since 2008, we've been supporting the community infrastructure. And that's one way by which we give back to the Camino. The membership dues and some of the generous donations that our members provide actually are the ones that fund it. In 2008, we had one grant for $10,000, and that was the beginning of the effort. Last year we had 11 grants, about close to $50,000 that we gave, and the grants program is recognized by the Spanish Federation of Associations of the Friends of the Camino de Santiago, and they gave us they call it the Premio Internacional Infitium Jacobeo 2021 for the effort in supporting the Camino.
Yeah, congratulations.
So this year, like you mentioned, we have provided or we have awarded, the board approved $78,400 for 16 grants in various caminos. Some of them are on the Camino Frances, others in Camino del Norte, others, like Terra Nova, the Pilgrim's House in Santiago. They receive a small grant to provide the acquisition of essential equipment for the Welcome Center.
Can I interrupt for just a second, Ruben? For someone that maybe is not familiar as much with the American Pilgrim Group, when you talk about infrastructure, could you just kind of give a definition of what we mean by that?
Yeah, so infrastructure means it's things that can be fixed and require capitalization for tax purposes. Is not operating cost. So what we, it's not things that can be discarded. So what we mean infrastructure is repairing sewage lines, buying beds, replacing a fence, buying equipment for the kitchen, mattresses, bunk beds, signage, that sort of stuff. So what we don't provide is grants that cover operating costs, daily operating costs. Or things that are that can be thrown away, within one usage, like for example, coverings that are, plastic, not plastic, but that cannot be reused, for a bed or things like that.
Got it. So. Yes, thank you. So before we started the call, I think someone had mentioned that there was a grant awarded for something in Astorga. And since so many people watching this have possibly walked through Astorga, I wondered if you could discuss.
Yeah, so there are several, there's two, this year we awarded two along the Camino Frances. Astorga is one that we gave the maximum allow money for them, and it's really to replace the boiler for the heating system and the plumbing that is required to tie it all together. Huh? So this year we gave them, and it's Asociación de Amigos del Camino de Santiago de Astorga y Comarca is the official name of the association that supports the Astorga albergue.
Okay. And so the money awarded is going to help them with the heat.
Well, the boiler and heating system.
Okay. Okay. All right. So and
it's they call it a boiler. It's like a furnace, you know.
Okay. Got it. Got it. And would you want to mention another one along the Camino Frances?
Yeah, there's a couple of them. We provided in Sagun, Albergue de la Santa Cruz on the Camino Frances to repair some sewage lines sewage lines that take the black water out of the toilets and the kitchen, so they have to replace that. We also gave a grant to the Casa de Peregrinos de Emaús in Burgos, and they replaced the hot water boiler and the acquisition of some stations to sanitize their hands and other stuff. So we're able to do that. Then there's a grant to Estela, the Asociación de Amigos del Camino de Santiago Estela, and the albergue is called Hospital de Peregrinos de Estela. Is to improve really the accessibility to the bathrooms, to put shower stuff, and then to make sure that people with disabilities can get in and repair that access to that.
Very nice.
There are several others. In total, there are 16 grants, for various things that they need to fix, from repairing restrooms to installation of solar panels to improve the electricity in their location, to again, some furnishing like beds and mattresses, to repairing bathrooms into albergues, and then upgrading equipment in the dormitories and kitchens, and replacing damaged signage panels on a route. So we gave some to the Camino Frances, and which is the most famous. I think there are 5 or 6 of them that we gave them. But there's also on the Via de la Plata. There's also on Via de Bayona. There's also on Camino Mozárabe and Camino Olvidado, which are smaller caminos that go along the way. And we actually gave a grant to in Pamplona, to the group in Pamplona, to actually be able to do some repairs there. Huh?
Excellent, excellent. Wow, it sounds like your committee has their hands full with having to make those decisions. And while
the way the process works,
they're certainly important, right? We all want to have hot water for the night. We want to be able to flush the toilets. We want to be able to do those essentials. So
right.
I commend you and your group for doing this.
Well, we get help from 12 or to 16 Spanish-speaking people that can review the applications, because the majority of them are in Spanish, and they rate them. They make recommendations. We cross-validate to compare them. Sometimes they agree, sometimes they don't agree fully, but we try to make sure that they make sense. And then we review that and then take the recommendation to the board on that. Again, we try to keep things simple. Once we receive the application, we process it. Then once the board approves, we give them notification to the grantee. They have to sign some papers, and then we wire the money. The whole process goes starting in December, in the 1st of December, and it's finishing about probably the middle of May, when they actually get all the money. And then basically every grantee has 1 year to actually complete their project. if for some reason there's delays in completing the project, some of them require permits from other, municipalities or other contributions, because we're not the only grantee. They all need to do that. We have conversations throughout the year with them, and then we try to be flexible and make sure that they complete the project, and we can be accountable for tax purposes as a nonprofit to our members as well as to the government to ensure that process works. So.
Excellent. Well, Ruben, I feel for one that your answer really would provide security to folks to know how seriously this grant money allocation is taken. It seems like a very serious amount of work that you put into this, a lot of care and concern to how that money is going to be spent. So I hope the folks that are hearing this interview tonight feel the same way that I do, that this is something that the board and certainly your committee is taken very seriously. And what a great way to give back to the Camino, which I think we all want to do, right?
Yeah.
So let's bounce over back to Steve. And I just wonder, Steve, as we head into this kind of next cycle of the years, you're preparing already for that next gathering. What do you hope to offer at the next gathering, and what kinds of things would you like to see the board achieve so that when you see everyone next time, you can have some bragging rights too? This is what we've been working on, guys.
Well, we set some goals for ourselves for this year, and simple, achievable goals. One is to make better use of technology. We're all trying to stay on top of that and to try to use that to communicate with people better. Joe and the communications team are doing a great job with that. How to make the best use of our social media presence. You talked about the Facebook community that has almost 30,000 participants in it now.
Yeah.
And how to keep our webpage up and fresh. How can we communicate with you? So technology, making use of technology is one thing. Another is refining what does it mean to be a member, and that's what Tom is working on really hard. Our vision statement is to welcome all who seek the spirit of the community to join the global community of pilgrims. Who seek the spirit of the Camino to join the global community of pilgrims. And so it's a very broad and expansive vision that we have. Mm-hmm. And so how do we sort of discern between that? So what difference does it make to be a member? You get some definitions about, or some privileges, like maybe a discount on registration at the gathering, some access to national Zoom events, which are really good. Tom just sent out a survey to get people's opinion on that. I suspect that the bottom line is going to be people want to be a member just because they want to give back and belong, But anyway, that's a second goal that we're working on. And the third goal that we're working on is, I mentioned it earlier, how do we channel the great enthusiasm and skill of all these members to the benefit of the Camino? If just 2,000 people, and one of the things that just impresses me at the gathering is how dedicated and the skill. I never knew we had a blacksmith who was one of our members, who could make a cruz de ferro, and he found a way to give back by doing that. A lot of it is Camino stuff, it just happens.
Right.
So anyway, those are our three main goals: technology, clarifying the value of membership, and then channeling the skills of members to give back to the Camino. So when we gather together in Lake Tahoe, those are the things we want to report on in terms of making progress.
Yeah, Steve, I think that's a really great example of, just through membership, that is a way of giving back. I haven't really heard anyone say that in the past. I think that sometimes maybe there could be a feeling, or maybe it's just something I have felt that, if I can't attend the Hospitalero training, that there's really not a way for me to volunteer. There's really not a way for me to be involved. And also, I think folks in general just seem kind of confused about what is the benefit of, actually belonging to the organization, because the group is so fantastic about providing so much complimentary information out there that sometimes people maybe have a disconnect as to, well, do I need to belong? Where does that fit? So I think your explanation as a literally by belonging, that is a way of giving back, because then that money can go towards the grants, can go towards sponsoring, I'm assuming, the gathering, the tech support, all the other things that it takes to run this organization. Am I hearing that correctly?
If your first question when you're considering becoming a member is, well, what's in it for me, then you probably don't want to be a member. You know, it's more because another one of our values is service, right? Service, community, simplicity. Those are the things. That's what it is. Yeah, Tom, I hope I didn't undercut you on that you weren't planning on me, you know. But you don't get any tchotchkes, you know. You don't get a tote bag, you know. So, but you get a patch.
You get a patch
for your back.
You get a patch.
You do get a patch for your
But I think
backpack.
it's getting that word out there that it is part of the service.
Yeah, you're part of a community that serves.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Mhm.
And that is a way that if you can't go and actually volunteer at one of the albergues, you can participate by just being a member, and that
Exactly.
is a way to pay it forward is what I'm hearing from you.
Exactly, right.
So membership really is more philanthropic than it is transactional of getting something back.
Yeah, that's a good way of saying it. Yeah.
And I should say that, you know, we were talking about this, we're brainstorming, and maybe you can even help us there in Santiago. We're brainstorming right now the possibility of, you know, how there's Habitat for Humanity in the United States, of actually doing something like Habitat for the Camino, and a group of American pilgrims come over to Spain and help work alongside with the Spaniards in helping repair and actually physically making those repairs and construction or whatever needed to be done on the Camino. So I'll be interested in your input on that and other people's input. If they would like to suggest, you can just send a email to membership@AmericanPilgrims.org, and your suggestions would be very much appreciated.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's a really cool idea. You know,
Tom's
a way
got
on experience to actually volunteer in a hands-on way, in a different way than volunteering as a hospitalero. So yeah, very interesting concept. What were you going to say, Joe?
Well, Lee, I think that Tom was, you know, right on the money when he said it's more philanthropic than transactional. You know, Steve talked about our mission, that we inspire all who seek the spirit of the Camino to connect with the global community of pilgrims. And the board discussions I've been party to, we talk a lot about that. So there is a lot that we give to the entire community of pilgrims, regardless of whether they're members or not, whether it's credentials that we make available free of charge. We are now distributing La Concha, our magazine, is also available to all who seek it. We just rolled out a few weeks ago the latest issue, which is a resource guide for pilgrims. We also at the chapter level, I'll say, you know, we don't have a formal concept of membership at the chapter level. We welcome all, everyone who wants to participate. We don't refer to them as chapter members; they're pilgrims. Anyone who wants to come and participate. So, but it does take that member support to keep the whole operation going. And you know, some of the stuff that maybe others might find a little boring or whatnot. You know, we have insurance for if you go on the hikes or whatnot to make sure that folks are covered in that way, and the tools that we make available, and the grants are clearly the most visible. So.
No, that's good to know. I wonder if we can kind of end this maybe on some funny stories. I'm just wondering, you know, what's been the funniest question that maybe you have been asked about people maybe preparing to go on Camino? I mean, I always see there's lots and lots of interest in what backpack, what shoes. Has there been anything funny that kind of made you giggle when you saw the question?
Joe, you tell a great story about the lady that did the one-act play about how she demonstrated how to get up on a bunk bed.
She did
You tell
demonstrate
that, you tell that story great. Maybe you could demonstrate for us right now, Joe.
how to get up on a bunk bed. You don't want to see me trying to get up on a bunk bed. Let me tell you that.
But she did that on stage.
She did. And it was wonderful. I'm trying to think funny stories of the people have asked.
Or anything funny that happened at the gathering?
Tom teaches a class on the Camino at the local community college. And Tom, I'll bet, yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah, and it's inspirational to see these folks that come in with no, background whatsoever on the Camino, and they're just interested. And so some of those people are going to be joining me in a few weeks there in Saint Jean and start their Camino. But we even have, for example, a gentleman that is sight impaired. He has a cane and needs somebody to hold on to, and he's taking the class, and he's going with his daughter, who's going to lead him the entire way. And then this was a beautiful moment. This is what the gathering is all about when we get together with American Pilgrims. At our last event in Black Mountain, I see two folks, a couple that are married, and Russell and his wife. They're sight impaired themselves, and they're walking around with canes, and people are helping them. And so I got his contact information. Now I got him together with the gentleman here in South Bend that's going on his first Camino, and they're going to share their experiences. And that might not be funny, but I see that so inspirational that here the American Pilgrims are helping put together this resource. Giving sight to those that don't have sight, and helping them on their Caminos. I think that's what it's all about. The sharing.
Yeah, and I'll tell you another. This is, again, it's not funny, but it's kind of inspirational. One of our members is an endocrinologist, and she took her first Camino last year, and she started wondering, well, so what kind of resources are there for people with diabetes? So she started this big research project that's funded by, supported by her university. We participated in a survey she did at the gathering. She was just in Santiago and met with some resources there, just trying to make the Camino more accessible for diabetics.
Oh, I would love to.
This is. I'll send you her contact information. So these are ways about. So how do we expand the Camino? We don't need to really expand it in terms of gross numbers, but in terms of populations that might not, for whom it might not be so accessible. I mean, I think we were all inspired by, I'll push you. And that kind of got everybody thinking about how can we expand this to people who might have different kinds of issues.
Yeah, Steve, I think you raised a really good point. Last week, I interviewed the diabetes crusader, Bob, and we talked a lot about, folks that are wanting to walk, if they have diabetes 1 or diabetes 2, what are some of the extra things that they have to do to be able to walk. And so, I see my work, I see your work, I see all of our work in being able to provide a bridge for connection, right? So that, if there's someone else out there that wants to walk, what you're talking about, Tom, with any types of, needing help if there's problems with being able to see or whatever the situation is. I think we probably all know someone that we can connect someone with, or we know someone that can connect them to someone. And to me, that's such a Camino thing, right? Is, when we walk, that it's all about the connection, isn't it? It's about who we're meeting. And
Camino angels and the Camino provides.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Lee, there was one funny thing that just came to mind.
Okay.
So one of the activities that we have at the gathering is a raffle.
Okay.
And the pilgrims are very generous with mostly Camino related items that are part of the raffle, and it's part of the fundraising for the event. But one of our board members, Jackie, she either buys a lot of tickets or she has an incredibly hot streak. And I'm told that this happens every year. She has a hot streak. You'd think it was The Price is Right. Every time her number gets picked on the raffle, there's great joyous celebration. But I can tell you, because I was sitting next to him that our colleague Ruben here won almost as much
Ruben,
as
what
Jackie
you
did, but
win?
he's a lot quieter about it. He didn't have the displays that we had, but it was it helped to kind of fuel the enthusiasm around the whole event. And
if I go to the casino when we're out in Nevada next year, I'm taking Ruben with me.
exactly.
The winner, but he's very quiet.
I think
Yes.
that's on. He gets kissed by the ladies over there.
Well, good. We probably should come to a close here soon. I just want to give each of you an opportunity if there was something that you wanted to talk about. I'm just trying to look back at my notes. I think we hit most everything, but is there anything that, we'll start with you, Steve, anything that you want to add or?
No, I just appreciate the opportunity that you give us to talk about American Pilgrims and our mission and what we do. And I really appreciate the way that you're connecting pilgrims from all different corners of the globe. So thanks. Yeah.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. I always love hearing your updates, and I would have been at the gathering if I were still in the States. I wanted to come so badly the year before, and for the St. James Day celebrations, and that didn't work out. But hopefully one of these years I'll be able to come.
Well, and one of the things that made it especially poignant is the last gathering took place on like March the 13th, 2020. So when we arrived at the gathering, the world was normal. And 3 days later, when we left, everything had changed. So it's really, for those of us who were there, it's a real marking point. It's kind of like you go into this, transitional space and you come out. And so that made it particularly special.
It almost bookended the pandemic. And I hope that the gathering.
I hope it's a bookend, right?
Because the bookend is that Tahoe was the very start of the pandemic, and hopefully the event at Black Mountain is the end of the pandemic, and that's what we're all hoping for. But I'd like to also invite anybody that's watching this Zoom or listening that they very seriously consider becoming a member of the American Pilgrims. You just go to AmericanPilgrims.org and you click on Join Now, and it's a philanthropic thing. Your membership dollars, most of them will go back to giving back to the Camino, also to help the gathering and the information of the American Pilgrims. I think you see how generous the American Pilgrims are with the way that we help inspire pilgrims to go on the Camino. And so that is what the invitation is. Also, when you're considering going on the Camino, and it seems like there are great numbers now, I read that right there, not far from where you are at the cathedral, they issued 2,300 Compostelas on Easter Sunday, and the similar amount each of the days during Holy Week. So when you're averaging 2,000 to 3,000 pilgrims each day, they're coming back. And if you want to get an American Pilgrim credential, which really stands out, it also has some very powerful, inspirational readings there for you to read on your credential. And also it has your name typed in there with your city and everything. You can get that, and then you don't have to worry about getting your credential there in Spain. If you're going to find one or not, you'll have it when you go over, and you can go to AmericanPilgrims.org and get that for free. And of course, donations are very much appreciated and accepted.
Yeah, I kind of feel like getting that credential from the group is kind of that first vote of confidence. You're going with the support of all those that have gone before us, right? And you have the support of all the members and all the community that is in the States, so it's kind of a nice thing to get in the mail and feel like, okay, I've got this support and this connection from others that have already walked. So I know it made me feel good. So yeah, I think that's great. And I think it's really exciting about you meeting those pilgrims, those first-time pilgrims in St. John. I wanted to maybe just talk a little bit about that before we end. I think that's amazing that you're coming and walking and then going to St. John to meet up with them.
You want to go join, because I'll hopefully see you in Santiago there after I complete the Primitiva.
Yeah.
We can go together to Saint Jean and help get them
Oh my
started.
goodness, that would be so fun. How many pilgrims are going to be there?
Right now is about 8 to 10 maybe.
That is wonderful. And all first-time pilgrims.
Yeah, most of them are all first-time pilgrim. First time doing the Francis from Saint Jean too.
Oh, fantastic. Oh, that's so wonderful. All right, Ruben, anything you wanted to add?
No, I think it's just to add that over the years, over 10 years, American Pilgrims continues to donate. And so far, we're over $500,000 in grants and improvements, over 250 projects that have been implemented to the betterment of albergues along the caminos, the various caminos in Spain, in Portugal. So it's a great job. And American Pilgrims donations and subscriptions, make it happen. So we hope that American Pilgrims can continue to support us along the way.
Yeah, fantastic. And congratulations again on the award. That is wonderful.
Thank you.
And Joe, anything else that you wanted to add?
Yeah, I think the last thing that I would add, any successful, organization like ours runs on time, treasure, and talent. And so membership is one way to support us, but consider getting involved with the organization. I first got involved with American Pilgrims writing book reviews for La Concha. Was the first thing that I did. So if you've read a book and it really moved you that's around the Camino, consider writing a book. Now, we do only accept submissions from members, but consider that, or consider contributing something to your to the Facebook group or whatnot. Or maybe you have a favorite hike, and I'm sure that your local chapter coordinator would more than welcome it if you reached out to them and offered to help organize the hike for your area pilgrims as well. And anything like that. We are completely volunteer run, and I can say I think a lot of us have been involved with various other volunteer organizations, but I've never been involved with an organization that gives you so many opportunities to leverage gifts or talents that you have, and some that you didn't know you had. Though we can give you opportunities to do that as well. So I make that plea as well. So we're all walking in the same direction. And
exactly. And it sounds like this new idea about the Habitat for Humanity type of thing. I mean, there's going to be something for everyone, no matter what your skill set or what your interests are, right? It's just a matter of getting in touch and figuring out where you can help. So, wow, thank you so much. This was so much fun. And I'm going to close out the official interview unless there's anything else that any of you want to add.
Unless if you want Joe to sing Ultrea, he's done that at several of our gatherings.
Well, now, Joe, would you do that?
I would have to get the words up. Hold on.
All right.
No, really, Tom.
We won't put you on the spot like that unless you want to.
You can, you know what, where you can see it. You can go to our YouTube channel. Tom organized a wonderful 2-part open house event last December, and we had some great speakers. And he strong-armed me into singing Ultrea for that. So that I would encourage you to go to our YouTube channel. You can search it out. It is named for American Pilgrims.
American Pilgrims YouTube channel. Yep.
American Pilgrims YouTube channel will get you there.
Okay, that sounds good. All right, well, you guys stay on. I'm just going to close out the interview. Thank you, everyone, for watching or listening to this interview. I hope that you are as enthusiastic about the work that these guys are doing on behalf of the American Pilgrims. And, this is a volunteer organization ran by all volunteers. Everything that they're doing is purely on a volunteer basis. And for that, I commend all of you. What a fantastic way to be giving back to the Camino and for all that the Camino has given to each and every one of us. But more importantly, what it will continue to give to others as we move forward. So Thank you for your time tonight. Please stay on so we can say goodbye. And I'll see all the rest of you next week with our next interview. And thank you for supporting the Camino Cafe project. I love doing this. I love getting to meet everyone and expanding this Camino family. To me, it's all about connection. And as you've seen tonight, that is what we're doing here, right? So thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Lee.
Las cosas que necesito en la vida ya están aquí. I am free, free as a bird now, with my feathers.